Good evening and welcome to today's Tropics for September 10th, 2020. Please know I am not a meteorologist and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So it is September 10th, it is the peak of the hurricane season, and uh, basically in character with that, we're watching several storms, first of which is this largest disturbance in the Bahamas. Next up, we have a tropical storm, Paulette, which is currently getting sheared right now. There's also tropical storm Renee out in the eastern Atlantic, and that is also getting sheared a little. And further east, you have an African wave that's just emerging off the coast now. So we definitely have a lot to watch in the next little while. So first off, let's look at that disturbance in the Bahamas. So it's pretty broad. There's a bit of rotation of northeast of these islands here, but there isn't a whole lot to it really. It does have a pretty decent upper level conditions. You see a westerly flow here and some easterly flow aloft here. So it does have a healthy upper air environment, and that might mean it looks a bit more impressive than it really is. But there really isn't a whole lot of circulation, and there is a lot of convection here, and but it's not. It's just really strung out here, so it's not going to concentrate a lot in the next little while because there's so much convection in a whole bunch of different places. You have to concentrate it a bit closer to some kind of wave axis before it can really get going. And it is currently heading generally westward, and it's not going to it's probably not going to have time to organize before it heads inland to Florida, and that might mean some extra rain. However, as it gets further to the west, you'll note it'll eventually pass Florida and get into the Gulf of Mexico, and there, the conditions don't really look all that unfavorable. There's pretty low wind shear, so you could see this continue to try to organize further west here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and possibly as it approaches the coast, maybe try to develop and strengthen a little. But it's a little early to tell. There isn't a super big threat other than possibly possible flooding from its rain in the next 5 days, but it's definitely something that's worth watching. Looking at tropical storm Paulette, it does have some pretty deep convection here, even up to down to negative 80 degrees Celsius. So it does have very deep convection. However, it's right near a tut cell, so it's getting sheared pretty badly. You can even see the southwesterly shear and some thunderstorms are trying to fire to the southwest of the system. And you can also see the low level center is trying to poke out under the convection, so it is quite clearly getting pretty sheared at the moment, and that is weakening it a little. But it does have, you can tell that there is a lot of instability because it is firing a lot of convection, but this isn't helping it organize at all, because this is more of a shear pattern. So as long as shear is high, it is going to have a difficult time actually strengthening. You can see that upper low here and its flow like this, and you can also see some uh, a couple of other upper level low type features are coming down. However, this one is probably going to remain separate and cut off from the others. And what Paulette is going to do is, as this travels off generally westward, Paulette's going to kind of rotate it a bit around the upper low, and that's going to make things pretty favorable for it. In fact, what is likely going to happen as we get into the early weekend is that as it starts getting to the north of the upper low, it's going to be in a more favorable region as the flow starts getting a bit more aligned with the low level flow, and that will mean it'll be less sheared. And you can see here uh, on one of the model forecast, it's a bit closer, so it's a bit more credible, but definitely don't hang your hat in one model run. But generally, what looks likely is we have some divergent flow aloft, and that's going to allow some convection over or some more convection over the center, And this will probably stop that weakening trend as it comes into this region, and eventually it'll pass over the upper low, and this will allow it to strengthen as the shear will be pretty low and continue to do that until mid-level ridge starts to build to its west or to its east, and that'll probably steer it a bit more north, and eventually it'll get caught into the westerlies, probably midweek next week. So you can see this in the official National Hurricane Center forecast, and you see it's just expected to to remain a tropical storm for a little while. See, it's relatively large. See, as it rotates around the upper low, and then it's likely going to strengthen in that low shear zone and become a hurricane. And it'll continue to do so until it heads more north, and then as it gets further up to the north and gets nearer to the westerlies, it might strengthen with the upper level divergence in the region, but eventually be sheared. However, it is expected to strengthen in the next 5 days and possibly be a hurricane near or over Bermuda. So, if you have any interest in this region or you are in this region, definitely keep an eye on Paulette because it could pass nearby and have some impacts. It's a little early to tell, and we'll know a bit more as this year begins to lessen. But definitely keep your eye on this storm because it does look like it might be a threat for that region. Next up, let's look at Tropical Storm Renee, and it just does not look very good. It had some deeper convection, but it's pretty much gone again, and now it's mostly cirrus except for like little cells like this. So it's possible that it's getting a lot of low-level convergence robbed by the wave to its east and Paulette, so that it can't really generate much convection. But this has been a recurring problem for the storm, and despite the nice looking upper level outflow that would suggest that there is low shear, the low level center is situated pretty far to the east, or as or of the outflow here, or yeah, the outflow here, or the general cirrus shield. So there is some easterly shear in the mid levels, and this is forecast to reduce, and it is forecast to strengthen. However, if it can't generate convection like this, it's probably not going to reach a 65 knot hurricane as it turns a bit more north. We'll have to see, but it definitely does not look very healthy, and it has gone through a few cycles like this. Now, in terms of steering, it is still going generally west-northwest, and it's approaching this break in the ridging, so it's going to try to turn a bit more north, and it might try to recurve, but it looks less likely. Eventually, as we get more into early a week, as it has traveled a bit more north, it misses that weakness in the ridge, and instead you have this same mid-level ridge that's building, and that's going to turn Paulette to the north. This one is going to start turning Renee a bit more to westward. However, at this point, it'll likely be weaker as it'll be very sheared. We'll have to see what it does later, but it doesn't seem to be too much of a threat really anywhere. It looks to stay out to sea. Oops. Sorry. There's the or looking at the official National Hurricane Center cone here. So or forecast, you can see it is expected to remain a hurricane. Remain it is expected to strengthen into a hurricane. However, this doesn't look quite as likely if it can't generate much convection. It might try tomorrow, but it definitely needs some more inflow and low-level convergence to actually get going. And you can see that it does try to turn north with that weakness in the ridge and the mid-level ridging to its east. But as the mid-level ridging builds into the north, it's going to likely turn more to the east or to the west, and that would and it would be sheared at this point, and that's why you see it weaker here. But definitely not really too too many places that you need to watch this in, except for maybe shipping interest, because it is going to stay pretty far from land in at least in the next 5 days. Next, let's look at take a look at this wave coming off of Africa. So it's near the Cape Verde Islands right now. It has pretty good structure, except there is also a wave a bit behind it that is also trying to come into the Atlantic as well, and you might see these getting pretty close together, especially if this wave is slow, and that's kind of the theme of this year. You have a lot of waves that interact with each other and become very messy monsoonal systems. We'll have to see about that. It looks less likely that it'll develop very quickly. However, it's likely that with the generally favorable conditions in the main development region, it is going to be able to develop. Now, when and where it develops is definitely a big question, because of the flow differences. And if you look here towards mid levels, there is a decent amount of flow, but it is slower than lower down. So a stronger storm would be steered by this level more, and probably be generally slower and have more time for some kind of weakness to drop down, possible potentially, and try to turn it out to sea. However, in the lower levels, the flow is much brisker, and that would mean a weaker storm would travel faster to the west and have a better chance of threatening or the northeastern Caribbean islands here. So it's definitely something to watch at this point, but it is very far out, and we'll have probably more than a week to watch this before it starts potentially affecting land, and we'll have a lot of those uncertainties ironed out, such as the interaction with the wave behind it, because this may keep it messy, but otherwise conditions were favorable, and we could have something try to track into this region. But it is quite early, and again, there's uh, some uncertainty to be ironed out uh, between then. So definitely something to watch right now, but not too urgent right now. Just make sure you're prepared as you should be at this time of year. Uh, Otherwise, there's a whole lot else to talk about for today. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know. And thanks for watching.